So for today, we have Katie, who is the Manager Director and Research Manager at Virtually Healthy, who is, I think, creating exercise solutions using virtual reality to help with fitness, rehabilitation, and therapy for both physical and mental health. Katie has MSc degree in biomedical engineering from University of Surrey, and her current research is focusing on the mental and physical health aspects of various VR games to create VR health programs. So we are very happy to have Kate with us today, and thank you very much, Kate, for coming forward to present in this journal club. And I'm now going to hand over to you, Kate.
All right, thanks for the introduction. I'm going to talk about what I've done in the gamified virtual reality for improving physical and mental health. So Mohammed's gone over this a little bit. I did my undergraduate in applied sport and exercise science at Winchester University. I did my master's degree in biomedical engineering at Surrey, and for my dissertation, I focused on gamified VR for chronic pain and using that for increasing engagement in exercise for helping with the treatment of chronic pain. So this has been published as a conference paper, and I'll go into details a bit about this study a little bit later on. I founded Virtually Healthy after I finished university because I wanted to bring VR and gamified VR into the health and fitness industries. I originally went looking for a job in the industry just to find that there was no companies doing that in the UK at the time. So this is, I think, 3 years ago. And I just figured I had to do it myself if I wanted to work there. So exercise, we all know that exercise is good for us, both physically and mentally. So the recommendations are 30 minutes of exercise a day, so 150 minutes of moderate or 75 minutes of vigorous exercise per week, and strengthening exercises 2 times per week. But only 27% of UK citizens and around 23% of US citizens meet this recommendation. So that is appallingly low for how much it can really help with our health. And especially with a lot of chronic health conditions having exercise as prevention and treatment methods, these adherence rates for exercise programs for health are also similarly low. And this is a big problem within the healthcare industry. And this is one of the topics that kept coming back up again and again within my undergraduate degree as being one of those glaring issues in the industry. So there's various barriers to exercise, reasons that people give that they can't participate regularly. So this might be a lack of time, but really this is more a lack of priority. So exercise is lower priority than, say, making dinner when you get home from work, or sitting down to watch a TV show or playing a computer game. Some people would rather do these other things than get up and do some exercise for 30 minutes. Some people say there's a lack of motivation to get up and do it. Some people, there are mental health barriers like anxiety and depression and self-consciousness about your body image. So you might not want to go to the gym and exercise in front of people because you're conscious about how other people will see you and your body. Pain is quite a big one, especially for people with health conditions such as chronic pain. Exercise can be painful. It can be really painful, especially if you've got chronic health conditions, but just generally when you're exercising, say you go for a run for the first time in years, your lungs are going to burn at the end of that. It's not going to be pleasant. A lot of people don't enjoy exercise. Some people might have a lack of access to facilities, like you might live in the middle of nowhere and no buses run to the gym. And then we've got the other issue of cost. These are just some of the main ones. So virtual reality, how does virtual reality come into this? Now, research has shown that immersive VR can distract you from both mental and physical pain. So you can reduce your pain whilst exercising in virtual reality, and it can help with mental health like anxiety and depression, which are really good things when you're trying to overcome some of these barriers to exercise. So the main theory of how VR distracts from pain is this gate theory of attention. So VR distracts and diverts your attention away from the pain that you would be feeling. And some studies have even shown that VR might actually change the way that the brain physically registers pain, as well as how it just perceives it. And all this research stresses the importance of gaming and play elements in these interventions using VR for reducing pain. So that kind of brings us to the gamification side of things. So gamification is the use of game-like experiences that promote flow and mastery and achievement and intrinsic motivation. So we've got these motivational affordances, so these aspects of games like feedback, points, badges, levels, scoreboards, goal setting, and challenges that will then lead to these psychological outcomes of increased self-efficacy, so the belief that you are able to succeed. It can reduce pain and it can improve attitude towards exercise. And then this overall leads to that further behavioral outcome, which is the end goal of increased participation, which overall will lead to a better quality of life. So this aspect of gamification is really great for allowing this easy goal setting and progression, and really positively influences people's attitudes and behaviors towards exercise. Now we get to my master's dissertation. So this is the title, The Exploratory Research on the Gamification of Exercise for Fibromyalgia Using Virtual Reality. A little bit of a mouthful, but isn't every research paper in some ways. So the aims were to create a working virtual reality game to induce moderate exercise, which was aimed to be played alongside other similar games for 20-minute sessions. I test the game with participants and determine its effectiveness as a form of motivational exercise. This is just preliminary research to basically look at the feasibility of using VR to increase engagement in exercise. Yeah, do you have a question? So I focused on fibromyalgia for this. So I had to choose something specific to look in on due to it being my master's dissertation, and fibromyalgia kind of popped out to me. So this is a chronic condition which causes debilitating pain and muscular stiffness. And the average perceived present quality of life score is generally 4.8 on a scale of 1 to 10, which is very low. There's no clear diagnostic method and there's no standardized treatment. And there's a lot of conflict between patients and healthcare professionals due to a lot of limitations to the resources available. Now, the reason that fibromyalgia was what I aimed at is because the most effective treatment involves a combination of psychological interventions, medication, and exercise programs. But we've got the psychological support generally isn't provided for people with fibromyalgia in a meaningful capacity, and the medication has a lot of bad side effects. So exercise is the main treatment method that is pushed for people with fibromyalgia. So exercise, it increases brain regulatory functions and decreases pain over time, to also lower fatigue and lowers the amount of pressure that's needed to be applied to a pressure point to trigger that pain response. And as well as these physical benefits, we've got these mental health benefits of decreasing depression and anxiety, which are really common comorbidities for people with fibromyalgia. But as with everything, low adherence rates are a big problem. Nobody with fibromyalgia wants to exercise because it's painful, which then leads to poor physical health, poor quality of life, and it's crucial to have a positive mindset for reducing symptoms and staying fit. So it's only like that top maybe 1% or 2% of people with fibromyalgia that have then that positive mindset to keep going and getting this exercise in for treatment. So for my methods, I developed a basic VR game with a design focus for fibromyalgia. I built it in Unity using Steam VR and the HTC Vive. It was aimed to induce moderate exercise and full body exercise. And the colors and the setting used were all based on research into fibromyalgia and chronic pain. I recruited 8 participants, which the inclusion criteria was they had to be able-bodied or diagnosed with fibromyalgia. had to be over 18 and physically fit enough to participate in moderate exercise. There were 2 games of 5 minutes that were played with a rest in between, and the rest was however long the participant felt they needed to be ready to play again. They answered a Likert scale questionnaire, which was completed anonymously, and this was based off the need satisfaction questionnaire that was originally developed for evaluating exergames, or exercise games, really. So I've got a little video of the game. So as you can tell, I'm not the greatest artist, but it's a very simple game, but it worked, I guess. So we've got 2 snow piles at the participants' feet they can grab snowballs from. They have to hit the snowmen as they appear around them 360 degrees. And then the snowmen throw snowballs at you that you have to dodge out the way of. And you can also try and sort of catch the snowballs as well, but that's pretty hard to do. So you can see the different aspects of exercise that I was trying to induce here. So we've got the lower body for having to bend down and pick up the snowballs, and participants were recommended to keep a straight back, bend at the knees, not rather than just bending at the waist and bending over to pick these up. We've got the core worked from having to dodge out the way of the snowballs, and we've got both arms worked from throwing the snowballs. And the way it's designed is so that it is more efficient to pick up with both hands and throw with both hands rather than just carrying on with your dominant hand all the time. So we get into some of the results. So we had a wide range of ages from 18 to over 65, mostly female, a couple of males, and most participants hadn't used any virtual reality headsets before. Only one of them had used the immersive HTC Vive. So the Samsung VR was the mobile headset that someone had used. So I think some of the main comments to pick out from here was that a good way to distract someone whilst getting exercise without thinking about it. And would like to start with 3-minute games and work time up slowly. So this participant obviously had a little bit of a harder time. They found it a bit more intense. Maybe wireless goggles would have been better. So as I was using the HTC Vive, we had the wire attached. This was back in 2017, this was. So this was before the Oculus Quest had come out. And as VR headsets are improving and we've got the wireless Quest and wireless adapters now, it's becoming a lot easier to get rid of those wires and not have that as a barrier. More effective if there were more difficult levels, like the sound of snowmen appearing, disappearing. So when I got them to play the game, there were 2 set difficulty levels that they couldn't choose. So that probably would have been a limitation for the study. I probably should have given them the option to choose which difficulty levels they would like to have played. Brilliant idea. Novelty possibly plays a part. For continuing exercise therapy, game and surroundings may need to be changed frequently. So that's, I guess, where I was aiming for this to be part of a program where they would be using other games as well to keep it varied. And that's one of the things that we're trying to do at Virtually Healthy, is create this exercise routine with a variety of different games. And I'll get into that a little bit later. It's surprisingly exhausting, however, definitely a good workout and fun whilst being a challenge. Simple to play, which means appropriate for all. However, if I was an actual game, it would probably be too easy. Would be cool to have levels, and wouldn't pay for it, but would play it with grandchildren. Yeah, so overall, from these comments, you can see that it's got a lot of potential, even if it is just a simple game that I created myself. So we've got all participants found that it was fun to play. But if you look down here, we had a couple of participants that did also note that it was boring to play. So that as fun and boring are antonyms of each other, this is slightly contradictory in a way. But all participants found it exciting, enjoyable, and entertaining to play. And only a couple of participants found it uncomfortable. So that might have had something to do with the wire getting in the way, as was mentioned in the comments. All participants felt immersed within the game, so that's probably likely mainly the VR headset itself and the technology rather than just the game. everybody put a lot of effort into playing the game, and everybody was motivated to get a high score. So that was one of the sort of big aims of this, was to get people motivated and engaged in the game, which seems to have been successful. Only one participant wouldn't play this game again, only one participant wouldn't spend free time playing this or similar games, and only one participant wouldn't spend money on this or similar games. So from the comments, we can probably tell that that was the participant that was in the over 65 range, as they commented that they wouldn't play that again. Feeling of having moderately exercised after playing. So most participants felt that they had moderately exercised, and then we can see from the Borg scale of exercise intensity, so the rate of perceived exertion scale, most participants had exercised at a moderate intensity. So 12 is that cutoff point. So only 2 participants were slightly below that threshold for moderate exercise, and 1 participant was exercising intensely. So that's that 17 up here. Okay, so when we asked how long they would spend playing these games in a session, we had answers from between 20 to 60 minutes. And overall, we had the majority of participants would have increased their frequency of exercising if they owned this or similar games. So you can see here, just under half of participants wouldn't have had any difference. There was one answer of -5 where the participant obviously didn't quite understand the question. So that's an anomaly, and that was omitted from some of the, not omitted, but that was flagged to be an anomaly from this. Okay, and then we got most of the participants would have increased by 1 threshold or 2 thresholds. Okay, so in conclusion for the study, the game was found to be fun, exciting, enjoyable, and entertaining by all participants. Most participants felt that if they had exercised at a moderate intensity, but more difficulty levels should be added and used. So only one participant, which was in the over 65 age range, was uninterested in playing this or similar games again. So there is some research out there that supports that over 60s are less interested and less likely to engage in VR. However, this will likely change as the population grows up with this technology. And we're already seeing a lot of older participants or older VR owners that are really engaging with virtual reality. So this is likely to change from opinion and the market at the moment. And finally, that gamified VR has a lot of potential for increasing motivation and engagement in exercise. But as this is such a small study, further research is obviously needed to support this. So that brings me on to Virtually Healthy and what we're doing at Virtually Healthy. So our goals are to use gamified VR to increase engagement in exercise and improve health outcomes for both physical and mental health. So we want to use current games to develop holistic VR programs to help with physical and mental health together. So currently, physical health and mental health are dealt with separately. So you go to your GP for your physical health, and you might go to a therapist for your mental health. Yeah, but these two are very closely linked. They go hand in hand. If you don't have very good physical health, you're unlikely to have good mental health. If you don't have good mental health, you're unlikely to have good physical health or take part in the things that are necessary to improve your physical health or maintain your physical health. Yeah. Our aim is to create a mobile and web app that will host our VR programs and our data about each game. So we're doing research into the mental and physical health benefits of different VR games, and we want to allow people to create their own custom programs based on our data, as well as creating our own VR health programs for a wide range of health conditions and general fitness purposes. So our current research, we are partway through the data analysis for a big research project. So this is all currently self-funded, and we're aiming to pitch for funding and investment soon to continue and build our app and take this and grow. So we had 20 participants that attended for an hour a week over 18 weeks. It was due to be 20, but we had to cut it a little bit short due to COVID, unfortunately. But we were using motion capture heart rate monitoring, and questionnaires. So we were sent over 40 games by developers to include in this research, which we've had an amazing response from the developers who seem really on board with what we're doing, and they obviously too see the potential of their games to help people with health and fitness. We were only able to include 36 of those games so far, but we're hoping to continue this research in the future and include more games and build up that repertoire of data and sort of scientifically backed research. Now, exciting part, so here are a few of the findings that we've got so far. So these are still subject to further analysis, but there's a little sneak peek into what we're finding. So we had an adherence rate of 90% with only a 10% dropout rate. Now, in the literature, in other research projects that have similar lengths of exercise programs, there's generally an adherence of around 43% and a dropout rate between 25 and 50%. So this is a huge increase that we've seen in adherence. And yes, it is still a small study, so more research is needed, but that really shows that massive potential of VR for increasing engagement in exercise. We compared perceived exertion to heart rate and found with a statistically significant result that perceived exertion is lower than actual exertion. We observed some heart rates to be lower than the initial resting heart rates whilst they are in the virtual reality menus or in between games. We observed heart rate to return to lower than initial resting heart rate after playing in virtual reality. And we had 2 participants that had slight limitations to the movements in their arms, or one of their arms and one of their hands. And they both commented without any prompts how they felt that they could do more in virtual reality than they could do in real life. They felt like they had a greater range of motion. And we do have some data that we can look into for one of those participants to compare the range of motion towards the beginning of the study towards the end of the study. So that's one thing we will be looking into shortly after. Okay, so here's some of my references, and thanks for listening. I'll open up for discussion and any questions.
Thank you very much, Katie. It's really interesting work. I think there is one question in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we are open, I think, for anybody who would like really to say their questions directly. So we are open now for general discussions about the paper and about the presentation and anything related to this work. So did you see the first question, Katie?
I can't see any questions.
You can't. Okay. Just one second, let me to find it myself. Okay, so the first question, they're saying, if from Bilin, interesting work. The question is about you saying fun, comfortable, motivating, intense. So in comparison to what? How to interpret those results? Do you plan to compare these results to any other intervention?
Yeah, that's a good point to make. We didn't have any comparison. It was just it was a Likert scale question. So the game was fun, not true at all, slightly true, not true or untrue, true or very true. It was that sort of scale, and participants answered that was a very true thing for fun. And same with, we had the opposite. We had this game was boring, and exactly the same for that. So we weren't trying to, I guess, give leading questions or anything. But no, we don't have anything that we were comparing it to. In the future, yes, we will be looking to develop, once we've developed our VR programs, we will be looking to compare these to other interventions, and we'll be looking to do completely new studies to do a comparison to those.
And this is actually taking us to the next question, which is about, could you indicate what is the questionnaire that you have used? Do you have a reference to these? Are they validated?
So I based it off a lot of the questions from the need satisfaction questionnaire from the Exer Games, which was a validated questionnaire. It isn't a validated questionnaire in itself because it's one that I developed because it is more specific to virtual reality, which no one had developed at the time when I was looking for. I don't know if anyone has as such. I do have the questionnaire that I can post somewhere. I can find that, and I guess if you want to send me your email, I'm happy to send that across.
I think it's fine. You could send it to us, and then we could circulate this to all those who attended.
Yeah,
really.
yeah, sure. I do have like a journal paper that I was looking at getting published, but I haven't really had the time to go through all the motions. So at the moment, it's just published as a conference paper, but I do have that written out as journal paper if anyone's interested in that.
Okay. I think there's a number of chatting. I start losing now where we were. Okay, how do you choose feedback modalities using in the serious game?
How do you choose feedback? What exactly do you mean by feedback modality? Do you think?
Annie, Laura, if you would like to speak, you can ask the questions directly. Just to switch your microphone and unmute yourself, and you can speak directly.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Ketchy, for this presentation. I mean, feedback modalities is about the visual feedback that you choose. We can see that you choose a snow environment.
Yes.
Okay, so why this environment? And when the patient reach the objective, they have feedback on this. So how did you choose that?
Okay, yeah, great question. So the reason I chose this snowy environment is due to research into chronic pain. So it was shown that sort of cold environments and cold thoughts are helpful for easing pain. So that's why it was based in this environment. And I was using a lot of cold colors, so whites, blues, and things like that. The red, you'll notice that there was a red scarf on the snowman. So there was a research paper that looked into colors and then what people with chronic pain represented their pain as and what colors represented to them. And red was one that was blaringly representing their pain. So I thought I would include a little bit of red on the enemy so that it was this, what's the word? This representation of their pain as the enemy so they could fight away in a way. As for feedback, there was haptic feedback on the controls for when they hit a snowman or got hit, so the vibration from the controllers. And I think that was it.
Okay, thanks.
I think there's somebody who's interested to know more about how you have started your company and who else is in your team. I would prefer to leave this a bit now for this question and to answer it at the end and just to focus a bit on the science. But doesn't mean we are going to not answer this, but it's just to, I know maybe there is a lovely story behind this. Just there's a couple of other research questions.
Sure.
There is another important question here about Cypress sickness, and as you have because you have been using HMD, head mounted display. So did you check Cypress sickness, and what are your recommendation about the length of the sessions using an HMD?
So yeah, I did a lot of research into motion sickness, cyber sickness, VR sickness, all the same thing, I guess, different names. And the main things that came up as causing motion sickness were a frame rate of below 60 hertz. So any lag, any unoptimized games that cause this jutter when you're moving, that's what can cause motion sickness. And the motion sickness is basically this difference in your vestibular system and your visual system. So your balance in your ears and what you're seeing through your eyes. And anything that causes a mismatch of these two systems causes that motion sickness feeling. So we had the low frame rate that causes that. If there is any lag, so if you're playing an online multiplayer game, an online game, for example, and your internet has a blip or something, you might lag a little and that would cause some VR sickness. And another one was if you are being moved in virtual reality. So say you're on a roller coaster. Roller coasters will cause motion sickness because you're moving in virtual reality. So you're seeing yourself move, but you're not feeling it in your balance system. But if it's just like the game that I designed, there was no movement. I made sure that their frame rate was high enough for it not to cause lag. It wasn't online, so there was no lag issues like that. That's generally not going to cause any motion sickness. And what was the last bit? Sorry, recommendations about the length of session.
Yep.
So obviously, when you're in virtual reality, you don't want to be in there for hours on end. I guess it's not going to be great for your eyesight. There was not a study, but there was somebody that had bad eye issues that had been in the VR for, I think, 8 hours a day for months or something, and ended up having bad issues with his eyes. Obviously, that's overuse of virtual reality. But if it's less than that, you're having regular breaks. I think as long as you're having regular breaks and you're not in there from hours on end, there's no problem being in virtual reality from what I've seen in the research. Maybe after 20 minutes, it would be good to have a break and make sure you're blinking, because when you're in virtual reality, your eyes don't blink as much because you're so focused on what you're doing. So my advice would be maybe every 20 minutes, have a little break for a couple of minutes and go back in. Sorry?
It's okay. Go ahead.
Manuel, do you have a question or a comment? Nope. All right, so next question. I think that was...
Okay. So the other question is about, do you see any changes in motivation to participate during the last year as we are all restricted with traveling, etc.? It's a good question.
That is a good question. I've definitely seen, because looking at the market research, there's a lot more people buying home exercise equipment, a lot more people looking into exercising at home. Personally, I've seen it go one or two ways. People are doing a lot more exercise because they're trapped inside and needing to sort of get out for a bit, and they're going for a run or something. But then you obviously see the flip side of that, where mental health is really being affected by the lockdown and restriction with traveling and things like that, and that lower mental health leads to less engagement with physical health. But what I can say is that people that own virtual reality headsets, I have seen a trend of them actually engaging more, and it having helped with mental and physical health with the people that own the VR headsets. This is mainly just from personal observation from Facebook groups and interacting with the community, rather than, I guess, research as such, because I haven't looked into that too scientifically.
I have a question about you. You started, I think, this presentation talking, the paper, it's talking about mainly using virtual reality for targeting people with pain.
Mm-hmm.
So is the idea of the virtual reality here to reduce pain and improve physical activity?
For virtually healthy, it's the main aim, and our main goal is to just increase engagement in exercise. And the fact that virtual reality reduces pain, both mental and physical pain, is a big contributor to how it can motivate people to engage more. So I started looking at virtual reality by looking at it as a form of treatment or something to help with chronic pain, because that was what most of the research was in at the time when we're in virtual reality. But my real mission, I guess, with Virtually Healthy and what I want to do is to get more people engaged, up and moving with exercise and physical activity through virtual reality.
So you are not targeting pain then? So you're not targeting to reduce pain?
Not specifically, no, not at the moment. That will be one thing that we'll be looking for. So at Virtually Healthy, we want to target a wide range of health conditions, because exercise is a prevention and treatment for a wide range of health conditions, and there's so much potential there. And that chronic pain will be one of those health conditions that we will be targeting in the near future, but it's not what we're focusing on now.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. I'm just, because I'm here just trying to understand like the potential of using virtual reality, if it's not, because I think the idea is like how the virtual reality can be translated into the real world. So you could motivate people to use the game, to use virtual reality to do specific exercises. But like what you said, nobody can stay on the virtual world for more than whatever hours per day. So then I think the bigger question is is the virtual reality experience transferable into the real life?
Oh yes, definitely. There's research showing these transferable skills from virtual reality to the real world. There's a few papers that I've seen that have come out showing how like there's training in virtual reality or movements in virtual reality that do relate to that same training and learning in the real world.
So in this,
you learn.
Yep, go ahead.
So something you learn in virtual reality, it will be learnt in the real world as well.
Yeah, I mean, then I just back to my original question about pain. Even if you're saying you are not targeting to reduce the pain, but we know from our experience and communication with patients, even people, they don't do sometimes exercises because they know if they do the exercise, they're going to be in pain, either during the exercise or even after the exercise. But if I'm a healthy person, I know if I run today, I will have pain, but I know this pain will go after a couple of days. So I will continue doing the exercises. While these patients, they know they have chronic pain, and then this is what is dismotivating them to perform any exercises. So as long as they are not within the virtual environment, where the virtual environment distracting the pain, but once the virtual reality is not there, then they're back to remember their pain, and then it's limited them to do the exercises. I think pain element, it's hardly to be neglected in the research. And I'm not sure how did you measure the pain during the activity and whether they had any experience, whether they had any pain after they completed the exercise.
So I didn't, but there were studies that had done that I have included in my preliminary introduction and literature review for that study. There were studies that looked into pain before, during, and after virtual reality, and it did show a decrease of pain after the virtual reality experience as well as during it. So it does have this prolonged effect, I guess, on that distraction from the pain, as well as whilst you're in the virtual environment. So it's not just while you're in VR that you have that distraction from pain.
Okay. I think I don't think that the evidence about the relationship between training skills, abilities in a VE and the real world is not quite as conclusive as the speaker has mentioned. A lot more research is needed in this area.
Yeah, I think that's true for a lot of research in virtual reality. It is still in its infancy, and there is a lot more research needed to back up and support any conclusions that have been made from the virtual reality research, because it's only been going for a few years, at least with these immersive headsets.
Yeah, Lodge says I use the ADOPT. I'm not sure what this stands for. Would like to speak. Let's just unmute yourself if you don't mind.
In the beginning, we had a question about some questionnaires which are used to evaluate your VR experience. And a couple of years ago with the students, I used and translated the Adopt VR questionnaire in Dutch for evaluating our small VR application, just to give it to the group. There's originally, it's an English questionnaire.
Okay, to look into that one. I didn't see that when I was doing my study. Perhaps potential I missed it. Potentially it might have come out after I did that. But yeah, thanks for bringing that to my attention. I'll definitely look into that.
Anyone has any question really? So I'd like to open the mic and speak.
Yeah, my name is John. I actually have one. You were mentioning, Katie, thanks for the presentation, You're mentioning about like new games that you guys are trying to incorporate in the training programs you have. I was wondering, how is the creation? Like, how are you selecting those? What is the type of filters that you're using? And how do you know certainly that those games are fun, or they can produce any specific physical benefit, or like fitness benefit, which is more or less what you're trying to promote with this community?
Yeah, so we contacted developers of games that were a combination of popular already, so games like Box VR, Pistol Whip, Super Hot, that personally I played and know get you moving around, and you can see that potential for physical or mental benefits in them. And other games were based on recommendations from people in the community that have played these games that think they might have physical or mental health benefits, or the way that the games are marketed and show people moving around whilst playing them. So that's how we selected them initially, to be able to think, okay, well, these might have benefits. And then within our research, we have gathered the motion capture data to see what movements exactly are induced by these games. We've gathered heart rate to see what heart rate intensity and what the intensity of exercise is for these games, and questionnaire data, including perceived exertion and information based on like mental health. So if they felt relaxed, stressed, kind of like, what's the word? If they solved puzzles, or if they solved puzzles during this game. There's a word for that that's gone from my head right now. And various aspects in the questionnaires, as well as this motion capture and heart rate data. And that's what we're using to assess these physical and mental health benefits of the games.
Okay, we still have more time for any questions.